Okay, I think we are live. I think we are going. I think right now we've got me and 3 people, which if we stay this small, it'll make for a very nice, cozy, intimate little session. And I'm looking at Darren and Jeff and Guy. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I will tell you who I am and what I do, and then you can ask me any question that you want to ask me about writing or anything else. I am a writer. I've written for everybody from the New York Times to the Funny Times. I've been in 16 Chicken Soup for the Soul collections. I've been on the Today Show, and I've been on Morning Edition. And so I've been at this for a while. I'm also a writing coach, an editor, and I work with writers on and off Medium to help them make their work better and help them get boosted on Medium or help them get paid off of Medium in paying markets for their work, because there are a lot of good paying markets for personal essays, which is what I tend to focus on, although I work with writers and everything all over the place. And I have been on Medium for 4.5 years at this point, so I'm pretty familiar with the platform and what works and what doesn't work on the platform. And I am basically here to answer questions about Medium, about writing, about publishing, about what it's like to be on the Today Show, about anything you feel like asking me about. Hi, Lee. Good to see you here. And so the question, so I can see the people. I think that there's a place where people can ask questions, but they don't say, okay, I get to announce Q&A. Maybe that needs to trigger it. Okay, confirm and notify. I am not the most tech-savvy person on the planet, to put it mildly, but I'll do the best I can. And I apologize if I hit the wrong button and crash the whole thing. But right now, there are no questions from anybody. But there are 13 people. John Zell! All right. Okay, so thank you for being here. I'm seeing Guy, John, Jeff, Claude, Francis, Wanda, who I just somehow managed to. Okay, how do I get back to the chat? Okay, I managed to get back to the chat without crashing this event. If I'm able to make it through the next 30 minutes without crashing this thing, I will be startled. So I'm here to answer questions, and the thing is, does anybody have any questions? We've got 24 people here at this point. I'm looking for Q&A. Okay, John Peck. Hi, Roz. What are some of your go-to methods for story idea generation? Okay, I don't have a problem with that because I'm an opinionated person who's been on this planet for 68 years. So I never run out of things that I want to share with people, and I never run out of things that I want to say to people. If you are trying to generate ideas for personal essays, anything that gives you an emotion at all, a happy emotion, a sad emotion, an angry emotion, anything that, when you, at the end of your day, something will have happened to you that when people tell you what happened today, you'll tell them the story. You'll tell them, well, this is what happened. I was stuck in traffic, and then there was a heifer on the freeway, or whatever was noticeable, whatever made you think or feel something, that's what you want to write about. Some people, especially comics, they read the paper every day. They just go through and they just wait for a story that they can write about to hit them. As someone who writes personal essays, I tend to keep more to what's happening in my life. But if you don't have opinions, you probably shouldn't be a writer. If you don't have strong emotions, if you don't care about things, if you don't have things that you want to say to people, you're kind of in the wrong business, unless you have a particular topic that you want to just keep hammering home in different ways, in which case, that would work too. But I don't have a method as much as just, I live my life. And you become aware, if you live your life and you're a writer, you become aware of what's going to make a good story. And I end up saying to people who are talking to me, there's an essay there. They'll be telling me about their day. I'll say, there's an essay there, constantly. So the more you write and the more you think of the world through the eyes of a writer, you will notice stories everywhere. And you'll basically say, okay, there's a story there, there's a story there. If something happens to me, especially, back when I worked at the library, if somebody gave me a hard time, I think, okay, I'm writing a story about you, pal. So, or if someone was wonderful or touched or moved me, I'd be like, okay, I'm writing a story about this. I don't want to not mark this. I want to share this with other people. So the more you write, the more you start to look at your life as it's all material, which is something that Nora Ephron's mother, who was a writer is quoted as having said to her, everything that happens to you is potentially material. And if it matters to you, you can make it matter to your reader, because everybody loves a good story. So that's what I have to say about that. Testing this for you. I'm not sure what that is in the way of a Q&A, so I'm going to. Okay, testing this for you. I don't think that's a Q&A. I think that somebody's helping me do something. Okay, I've got 55 people watching me, and I've got one. John has been the person who came up with a question. I appreciate it. Any other questions? I can just, blather on, but this is the point of this is, okay, my questions, review questions. Oh, okay, we got some more. Can you pitch an article to the New York Times, for example, that has been previously published on Medium? No, you can't. When you want to pitch it, there are very few markets, and I'm supposed to review that, right? I'm supposed to do something about that. Okay, I've approved it. There are very few markets that will take previously published material. Okay. There are some. And what you need to know when you're going to pitch to someone is you have to look at their writer's guidelines and figure out, do they take previously published work or not? Chicken Soup for the Soul will take something that's been published on Medium. The New York Times will not. And in fact, the higher up the food chain you go, the harder the rules are, the more hoops you have to jump through. If you publish something on Medium, so if you have a story that you think is worth money, that you think, okay, a paying market might go for this, you do it in the opposite direction. Most paying markets, like say the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Christian Science Monitor, Huffington Post, or something like that, they will buy the first time non-exclusive right to publish your story. So they buy it they get to publish it first. No one else can publish it for, whatever exclusivity period they have. So maybe, 30 days, 60 days, after which you are free to pitch it elsewhere or publish it on Medium. So it goes in the other direction. So if you have a piece that you think is worth money, look for a paying market outside of Medium first. That being said, at this point in time, something that is worth money outside of Medium, something that a market will pay you $100 or $200, is also worth money inside Medium if you get it boosted. But there's no downside to getting it published first outside and then bringing it to Medium, because on Medium you can publish things that have been previously published it is a planet, Medium's a planet, that have been published off the platform. So that's what you do. But basically, you look at the writing guidelines, you see and every single publication has them somewhere. You have to Google them and look around for them. And then you look and see what hoops you can jump through. Do they take previously published? Sure. Or do they take previously published? They don't. So you have to figure out with each market. Okay, let's see. Have I ever, in review, this is Claude. Have I ever lost inspiration in the middle of a story and trashed it? Sometimes you put it on the back burner. If we're talking about a personal essay, sometimes you write a first draft and it's like, this isn't good enough. I want to write about this topic. But I don't know, this is not going anywhere. I have no idea what to do with this. You can put it away. Don't look at it, just keep it as a Medium draft. Come back to it in a month. You might be able to move it forward. You might get an idea that you didn't have when you first put it up there. You might figure out a good way to shape it, or a way that you can make it relevant now. Maybe something just happened in the news that makes this a relevant topic. So there's a lot of stuff that when I write a first draft and I get down a draft, I'm not sure where to go with it. So I just keep it as a draft, and I can come back. Sometimes I come back to a year later and I'm able to fix it. I'm able to go, okay, this is great. This is going to work now. I can see exactly how to do it, whereas I couldn't do it before. Sometimes it's just not going to fly. No matter how many times you come back to it, it is just not going to fly. You say to yourself, okay, sometimes there'll be a sentence out of there that you can pull out and use for something else. But, there's a certain number of things you start that you're just not going to finish. And that's just what writing is about. If you love it when you start it and you hate it, if you hate it 1,000 words later, then don't write about it. If you hate a story, don't keep it going. You can keep it going if you really think there's something here. If only I could figure out how to do it. Keep it going, until you run into a wall and have to give up. But if you're hating it, then life is too short. Move on to something that you love, or at least that you like. Okay, here is Guy, and I've been in academia for years and becoming, okay, I've got to approve of this. I don't even know what it is. Oops, what happened to it? I just approved of it and it vanished. God, I wish I were better about this. Okay, oh, here we go. All right, I just made your question vanish. So please type it back in again. I don't know what I did here. How to get correct words and avoid grammar mistakes. Okay, when you're done with your draft, run it through Grammarly just for the grammar. They will put the commas in the right place. They will stop the typos. Don't over rely on Grammarly, because the other thing that Grammarly will often do is edit the humor right out of a piece. They'll edit the voice right out of a piece. Everything will be correct and none of it will be interesting. But what they're very good at is catching the typos and catching the grammatical mistakes. So definitely they're a very good tool. Obviously I could also say, work with an editor, obviously, but, okay, I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say approve. What are my thoughts about self-publishing? It's Heidley. What are your thoughts about self-publishing a book? Okay. I think did I just delete yours question too? How the heck am I doing this? I approve it and then they vanish. So I'm just going to stop approving them. Most of my books were not self-published, and then I self-published a couple of them. So I've gone both ways. I published with a bunch of different presses, and I've also published self-published. And the writers I work with, some of them self-published, some of them are published by Random House. My most successful recent writer got a 2-book contract from Penguin Books for 6 figures, and that was just a terrific day when that happened. So it depends on what are your goals? What are you trying to do? There's no downside to getting your book published by Random House or Penguin. They give you a large advance. They have editors that work on it with you. They have lawyers that'll screen it so that no one sues you. They will basically have teams of people that'll work with you on promoting it. And they'll have teams of people working to come up with the right title. I mean, that's terrific. And then, bookstores will stock it. Libraries will stock it if it gets a good review. I mean, if you are self-publishing a book, a bookstore will not stock it because it's the way the business is set up, and a library will not buy it necessarily. You have to come into each bookstore and try to persuade them to run it, so that everything else being equal, okay, you have less control for the book. You've got editors involved that can do things like put something on the cover that you're not crazy about, or give you a title you're not crazy about. You have input, but they get the final call on that. And it takes forever for a book that gets published. If you get a book accepted by Random House today, it'll come out like, a year and a half from now. But it's still the best thing to do if you can do it. If you can get yourself an agent and they can sell your book to Random House, that's the way to go. But if you can't, or if you're in a hurry, or if you want the control over your book that you can't get with Random House, or if you don't necessarily want, or in your heart that this is not a book that Random House is ever going to be interested in, but say you have a particular topic you're an expert in, and you want to write a book about that so that when you lecture on that topic, you have something to sell at the back of the room. I've worked with a lot of writers who that's what they want. That's what they're aiming for. So under those circumstances, self-publishing makes perfect sense because you get all the profits. And this is a book that has a very particular, your target audience are the people that want to buy books from you in the back of the room after you talk about this topic. I worked with someone once on a book about how all the problems in her life were caused by the metal fillings in her teeth, and how she, tooth by tooth, ended up, changing her life for the better. Okay. I told her going into it, Random House is not going to go for this book. And she was like, I don't care. I'm an expert on this. And I want to talk to people about it. And I want to have a book to sell to them that will basically tell them what I couldn't put in the lecture. Okay, that worked out for her. So whether you want to go with a small press or a subsidized press or a big press depends upon what your goals for the book are. I think that's okay. Questions are in the chat queue. I believe there are technical issues in Q&A. Okay. Let's go to the chat queue and see if I can find. Oh, I want to write on Medium and have absolutely no idea how to begin. Okay. Gosh, you read a lot on Medium first. That's how you start to write on Medium. You read a lot, you get a sense of how the platform works. That's step 1, you start reading. Step 2, you start reading essays about Medium. People write about Medium all the time. There are magazines or publications with nothing but writing about mediums. You read a certain amount of stuff addressed at newbies, so that you basically don't have to reinvent the wheel. They'll tell you all the basics about how to format it, how to put it. It needs a title, it needs a subtitle, it needs a photo, and they'll give you'll get all this basic advice. You can clap 50 times, all the stuff that you don't know. So first you start reading just to get the lay of the land, and number two, you start reading stuff about Medium, and then you start writing. You should structure it the way Medium requires, and you have to learn how to do that. And then you basically just start writing, and before you post it, see if you can get as much feedback about it from friends, family, first readers that you can, so that you're just not publishing something. If you published anywhere, so yeah, that you know how to write a piece, so just, learn the basics from reading about, and then trial and error, throw it up on Medium and see what happens. Submit it to a publication if it seems relevant, because that editor might work with you. So say you are writing about, you're a senior and you're writing about something that has to do with seniors. Submit it to Crow's Feet. That's a really terrific magazine, and that editor, they will help you with it. If it's useful for them, if they think they can run it, they'll help you with it. Some editors for publications in Medium are more hands-on than others. So if you can find one that's willing to help you push it in the right direction, that's a very good thing to be able to do. How do you know? This is Christopher. How do you know when a story is finished? That is such a good question. The first thing I can say to you is it's probably not finished the first time you think it's finished. And the best thing you can do when you think that a story is finished is do not hit publish. Go step away from that story for 24 hours. And then come back to it, and you will absolutely find something that you could make better about that story. I basically get to the point where I can tell that my story is finished is because when I tinker with it and I change something and then I go, no, I want to change it back because the way I had it was better. And if you do that a couple of times, you think to yourself, okay, it's done, it's cooked. I don't need to tinker with this anymore. Because you can get to the point where you tinker it to death. You keep changing it and changing it and changing it, and it gets to a point where it's wonderful, and then you change it and change it, and gets to a point where it sucks again. So number one, never hit publish when you think it's finished. Step away from it for 24 hours, and then you'll come back to it. But part of knowing when something is finished is you just have to keep doing it and keep paying attention to feedback. It's like playing tennis. It's like learning how to play the piano. You learn by doing it, and also by getting some feedback from somebody that knows how to help you to do it. So should you be working with the editor? Sure. If you're not working with the editor, should you have a writing buddy you can pass material back and forth with? Yes. Is there someone in your life? My ex-boyfriend was a terrific editor. I could hand him a piece and he'd say, that works, that needs a change. He could come up with a good, funny line to put in there. I really miss that about him. But, my ex-husband, these are my two big relationships, was not very good at that. He was a published writer himself, but he wasn't such a good editor. Find someone in your life that can help you so that they'll say, no, that's not done. You have to finish it. Or this is good. This is cooked. Two questions at the bottom of the Q&A. If you have a moment, thanks. Okay, what's at the bottom? Francis, where are you? And then I've got John Zell. How important is social media in building a book audience? It depends upon how you publish it and where you publish it. Random House, okay, any place you publish it, they are going to assume that you're on social media and that you're going to promote your book. I've been writing since before social media, when you basically there was nothing but print. They didn't expect you to promote your work on social media because there was no social media, and it was really relaxing. You sent it to 17 magazine and they did all the work. They edited it, they formatted it, they came up with a wonderful photo. There it was in the magazine. They worked with you on it, and you didn't have to do anything but basically, call your parents and say, hey, I'm in it. That was that. If you're writing a book now, you are expected, no matter who publishes your book, even whether you self-publish it or whether Random House publishes, you are expected to spend a certain amount of time promoting that book on social media. And obviously, the more you do it, the better the book is going to do. So you have to be savvy about doing that. So you can't not do that. It's important to do that. On the other hand, you're a writer and you don't want to spend all of your time promoting your book. So you have to basically come to a balance that works for you. I know that you are very, John Zell, personally, I've worked with you, and I know that you are very good at putting the idea that you're a writer out there and you ended up in a Q&A with Stacey Abrams about writing a book, and you asked her a question. You said, I was writing a book. I mean, that's a really savvy way to use social media. If you're talking to Stacey Abrams, who has just written a book, and you ask a question, I'm working on a memoir too. What are your advice? And then she gives you 2.5 minutes of superb advice, and that's on a video, and that's on YouTube. Okay, that's a really good way to do it. That's if you look for opportunities like that, if you're aware of them when they fall into your lap and you know how to use them, that's terrific. What you don't want to do is spend all of your time running around promoting your book. And if you are published by Penguin or Random House, you're going to have to spend a lot less time doing that than if you self-publish. That's really the continuum. The more it's just you publishing your own book and the world doesn't know about it, the more you're going to have to tell the world about it. The more it's Random House and Penguin, the less you're going to have to tell the world about, because they're going to tell the world about it for you, but you're still expected to do something to tell the world about it. How do you approach someone like Penguin or Random House or a publisher? This is from Sherelle, with your book draft. You don't. You approach an agent. You cannot approach a publisher with a book draft, and it has to be a finished book. It's not a draft. It's got to be as good as you can possibly make it, and it should be copy edited too. Not only you should be working with an editor, but you should also be working with a copy editor. It should be technically perfect, and it should be as good as it can possibly be. You don't want them to see the potential in it, because they don't care. They want to see money. They want to say, okay, we can bring this into print and make money off of it. So you're not pitching to a publisher, you are pitching to an agent, and you have to find which agent to pitch to. It's a whole thing of finding the right agent. Once the agent accepts it, then the agent is the one who's pitching it to the publishers. And the agent, once they accept your book, won't just pitch it the way it is. They will invariably have a ton of upgrades they want you to do and edits they want you to perform before they're willing to pitch it to the next. The great thing about that is you're getting all this editorial advice for free, right? If you work with me, you're paying me $75 an hour. If you get an agent that's interested in your manuscript and they say, okay, here's 2 pages worth of edits I think you need to make, that's free. And the book is being made better that way. But the short answer is you don't pitch to publishers. Your agent pitches to publishers. What's the best way to find publications that accept new submissions? Are you talking about Medium publications or off-Medium publications? The best way to find publications in general, okay, and I've got to get Guy's question too, is to do a lot of reading and become familiar with what those publications are publishing. That's a short answer. It's not a great answer. Okay, I'm looking at Guy. I've been in academia for years and becoming much more interested in popular writing. I've just started writing with Medium. Yay, welcome. Writing primarily about social justice issues. Great. Quickly generating a following. That's great news. Interested in doing much more freelance writing and trying to figure out how to best go about it. I'm not sure what freelance writing is. Do you mean off the platform? Do you mean on the platform? If you write something that is timely, you can pitch it to. One of the things I tell people to do a lot is try to pitch it to venues off of Medium, because they'll pay you for it, and then you can publish it on Medium. How best to go about it? The way I tend to go about it is I write the piece and then I try to figure out who's going to run it. I don't do much pitching, which is a little counterintuitive, but I'm writing because I care about what I write. I want to write something, and then I don't really care who publishes it or how. And I'm a good enough writer that I know someone's going to publish it, okay? Or at least I'll put it on Medium, and a couple hundred people will read it, and that's fine. So what I do is I write it first, and then I think, okay, who might be interested in this? And I do this with the writers I work with. They will come in with something, and there'll be 2 questions. Is this good enough to become a finished essay? And the other question is, if it does become a finished essay, who's going to be interested in it? And part of knowing who's going to be interested, you can say to them, okay, this is a perfect essay for Chicken Soup for the Soul. They're going to pay you $250 for it for sure. This is a perfect essay for Next Avenue. They're going to pay you for it. This is a perfect essay for Modern Love. Okay, that's a long shot. That's the gold ring. But you have to know what your markets are, and you have to write what you want to write or what you're interested in writing, and then aim it at that particular market. And the only way you do it is you do it. You can do research. There's a website called Who Pays Writers that basically just tells you about all the different places that will pay a writer. If you're talking about publishing something on Medium, you have to do some research into Medium publications. Okay, so you're talking about on the platform. You have to do some research about which publications are accepting the kind of thing that you write. Like if you're writing about AI, what you want to do is get into the Generator, because that's the big publication, the most popular publication that is focused on AI. If you want to write about, it depends on what you want to write about, and you've got to find a publication that runs that stuff. But you also have to look and see how many people read it, because if they've got like 100 readers, there's hardly any point to that. If they have thousands of readers, then it's going to bring those thousands of readers to your work. Okay, let's see. Okay, Francis Bradford, my Q&A question. My followers continue to creep up, but in the last few weeks, my article reads seem to have tanked. I'm writing about the same kind of things. Any thoughts? Have I seen this? Okay, stats are weird, and things will go up or down. They just changed the way they pay people. And that probably means, undoubtedly means Medium, that they've changed the way they show things to people. They're tinkering with who they show your work to and how many people they show your work to. Okay. And so whenever they make a change in the algorithm, everybody's stats shift. And some people get paid more and get more views, and some people get paid less and get fewer views. Okay. You have no control over that. And I've been here since 2019, and I have seen that change many times. Okay. And every time they change, there's a difference in my stats. This last change has been good for me financially. I'm getting more money. I'm getting more views. The last 3 or 4 have been bad for me financially. So the thing about that is you cannot do anything about it. So don't worry about it. You have to focus on making what you write as good as it can possibly be, and just not try to outsmart the algorithm, because you can't do it, or outthink psych out the algorithm. You can't do that. One thing I say to people, that if you feel that you're writing well and you aren't getting the audience that you want, think about markets outside of Medium. Explore markets outside of Medium. You can publish something. I've already said this, but it bears repeating. See if your hometown paper publishes personal essays. The Philadelphia Inquirer does, and it'll pay me for one. So if I come up with something good, I publish it there, and then I repost it to Medium. So I've got the $100 under my belt, and then whatever I get from Medium is icing on the cake. Okay. I have several pubs that are new, and I'm struggling to get views to the stories, mine and 5 other people. Okay, there are 3 ways to get views on Medium. Number one, you have to write something excellent that people care about. So if your pubs are very niche and you're writing about something that people don't really want to read about, like wombats, or salt shakers, no matter how beautifully they're written, you're not going to get a whole lot of readership. And of course, I forgot the other 2. Reciprocity is the next thing. Medium is it's a community. There's a lot of give and take. When you start out on this platform, if you want to build your readership, the best way to do it is you read other people's work. You comment on it, you highlight it, you clap for it so that they know you've been there. You don't just write great piece, because anybody can say that. There's no indication that you read the piece. You interact with it, you engage with it in such a way that they know you've read it. Okay. Medium being what it is, the culture of Medium means that most of the time, a lot of the time, that writer will then seek out your work and read it. And if they like it, they'll follow you. And that is the way you start. Okay. The superstars of Medium do not read the work of everyone that likes their work. It's impossible. And by the superstars, I don't mean me. I'm not a superstar of Medium. I have 11,000 followers, and about 100 to 200 people read me on a regular basis. So I don't consider I've been here for a while. I make a certain amount of noise. I'm a presence, but I'm not a superstar. The people that are getting thousands and thousands of views every day, they're not reading your work. That's just, they don't have the time to. They're busy writing stuff that's getting thousands and thousands of views. But if you're starting out, and if you want to grow your readership, you need to read other people, and they will check your work out. And if they like it, they will follow you. The other way you can do it is you can join their Facebook groups, the purpose of which is you read mine, I'll read yours. So basically, there's one called Medium Writers Lounge. medium magic, medium dreamers, medium mastery. There's one for women and NBs called the Women and NBs of Medium. There's a thread every day. You post a story. Everybody else is posting their story. And the deal is someone else will read your story and then you read their story. That's a good way to start building your readership when you're just starting out on the platform. Okay. If you live in a village in Southwest France, I can't help you because, that's, I envy you living in a, it's like, you can't, looking for local markets. It's hard to do if you live. I have writing clients that I work with. They're all over the planet. And I go, you can't, my advice for a lot of people in this country, which is go to your local paper. Obviously, if you live in Southwest France, you can't do that, Francis. On the other hand, you live in Southwest France. So I'm not going to feel too bad for you. Okay. All right. Your pub. Okay. You're going to promote your pub. Good for you. Francis is on this. My pub, a new music pub, was recommended by 27 others, one being Tony Stubblebine. That's a good recommendation. We cover a number of genres. Lovely. Okay. What's the name of the pub? While you're promoting yourself, do it. What's the name of the pub? Hi, John Sal. Hi, Mary. Okay. Thank you for praising me, Christopher Eldon. I really appreciate it. Okay. You said the ending needs a punch. Can you give some examples? This is from Claudia Gold, and I cannot give examples off the top of my head. I'm really bad at that. I am really bad at that. So I can't. So the answer to that question is no. And then the underlying question that I have about that is your question coming from you don't really understand what that means, which I'm guessing that it does. And I think the point is you don't want to just wander. Once you've talked about whatever you're going to talk about or told the story you're going to tell a story about, you need to consciously figure out how to wrap it up. Okay. And what I'm trying to get people to do is think about that and come up with the best solution you can. Don't just stop. It's like my grandfather, when I used to talk to him on the phone, when he was done talking, he just slammed down the phone and that was the end of it. Okay. That was an ending and it worked for him. It was always for me like a little, huh? And what you want your reader to not have that, you want them to have some sense of closure. You want them to feel the ending coming. And when it gets there, they should go, okay, this story's over. If I were to write an article in which I took out a bunch of examples of, and that's probably a very good idea for an article. I should write an article in which I say, here's my 5 top last lines on Medium essays this week. The problem with that is that if to really be a good last line, you need to have read the whole thing so that you recognize why that's a good last line. It's not a terrific line out of context. It's just the opposite. It is all about context. Okay, I've ended. I've run out of time. Okay, that's the end of it. I am sorry I went over. Thank you very much for being here. It says leave. So I guess I've got to leave. Yep, 3:31. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.